Alright, so this is the tomato plant in question. Now, this tomato plant was planted about a month after everything else. I just decided to buy Boxcar Willie seeds online to try to grow one. It was a lot later, so I didn't really expect much. I just wanted to see how it would work. The problem here is that tomatoes can be a little bit sensitive to too much fertilizer, and for the rest of what I had in this bed, I had a lot extra compost in this bed, and so it actually furrowed the leaves of the tomato plant. And then if you actually look here, this is what happens when you fertilize the tomato plant too much. The leaves all curl up just like this. You see where the leaves, they all curl up. Okay, and what happens as well is that when the flowers came out, which they already did twice, the flowers curl up as well. And because the flowers curl up, they never actually open properly to get pollinated, and therefore you never get tomatoes. So if you over-fertilize your tomatoes, you'll never actually get any tomatoes. So you might think, hey, it's okay to put it in a bed. It has a lot of fertilizer because I planted it late, I want it to catch up. So it'll catch up to most of my plants. Well, that's not exactly what happens. And also, as you see, this one actually suffered from blight as well. So I had to cut off a lot of the lower stems. So this is just a very unhealthy plant. Way too much fertilizer, it got blight, it's late in the season, it's not doing well. Well, guess what? I don't like that. I'm gonna fix it. Okay, so the first thing when you're preparing a bucket for a plant is that you want to make sure you have proper drainage. So obviously a 5-gallon bucket doesn't have holes in it, okay? So we're gonna take our drill and we're just gonna drill some good holes in it. Now this is a pretty decent size hole. You want to make sure that the water can actually get out. It's not going to sit trapped there and rot the roots, okay? You always have to have good drainage for plants. So you want to put a decent amount of holes in the bottom. Now you don't want to put holes on the side, only the bottom. If you put holes on the side, the water can seep out the side and not get to the bottom where you want the roots to grow as well. So always put your holes only in the bottom. Alright, so let's drill a few holes. Alright, so if you look there, I've got multiple holes, maybe about 8 or 10 or so. Okay, so that's not bad at all. That'll be plenty of drainage for it. So now we can actually fill this up with soil. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is start adding all the soil to my bucket. Now I want to show you what I'm doing here because I'm actually going to layer this a little bit, okay? Now I've done this before and this works very well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a decent amount of dried grass for my compost, okay? So this is not actually completed compost, this is just dried grass that I've added to my compost. If you get deeper down, you'll be able to see where there actually is, well, that's actually warm. Wow, that's really warm. That is exactly the way compost is supposed to be. It's cool on top from the day and very warm in the middle. That is awesome. So deep in there it is dark, but I actually just mowed both my front and back lawn yesterday, so I've got a lot of grass here from that. And it's wet from the morning dew. But I'm going to add some of this into the bottom of it, and then I'm also going to take some cocoa peat. I'm going to put that in the bottom with it as well. And then at that point in time, I'm going to start adding some of my garden soil. Now if you notice here, I pulled all my cucumber plants yesterday. They all started to die. Normal time frame, they always die at the end of July, beginning of August. And I've still got about 30 cucumbers sitting on my table right now. Way more than I can eat, so I definitely went ahead and pulled them up. And some things I had containers, I went ahead and put in the garden. Just some things I was playing with, new things I wanted to try. So we'll get some garden soil as well and put it in here. So I'm just going to take this. Now of course this would be better if it was nice and dry right now, more like hay, but it still works perfectly fine. Now what this is going to do, this is going to break down, okay? It's going to break down and add nutrients, add nitrogen to the soil, okay? Now this is really good for tomato plants. Now the issue with my tomato plant right now is that there was a lot of chicken poop in there, and that hadn't broken down all the way yet, and it didn't harm the rest of my plants, but it definitely harmed the tomato. So this is grass here. It's a lot lighter. There is chicken poop deeper in here. We might not actually get some of that. We might just stick to this just to make sure we don't harm it more. So this is just grass. This just slowly releases nitrogen while it breaks down, so it'll work out nicely. Alright, so let's go get some cocoa fiber. Alright, now this is cocoa fiber. This is absolutely amazing. Now this is the most fluffy material that you can ever find. Now this is just the shavings of coconuts, okay? It is amazing. It soaks up soil beautifully. It's really, really good for your garden because it holds water. So when you have a lot of this in your garden and it holds water, that means you don't have to water as often. You can water every few days instead of every day, because this is going to hold the water for you and let your roots have it when they need it. It's beautiful. So we're actually going to use a lot of this. This is very, very good. So let me actually get my bucket over here and I'm going to start filling this up and we'll be back in a second. Okay, so all I did here is I took my container here and I put a decent amount of the cocoa fiber here into the bucket, and then I just stirred it up nicely, okay? So now I'm going to take my shovel over here and I'm going to go dig that tomato plant up. Okay, now I have the tomato plant up. So you see, I still have a decent amount here, okay? The main root and everything is still attached. It's still got a lot of roots down in there, okay? So now we have this pretty tall but, well, ugly looking tomato plant. Now I want to talk about why we're using a 5-gallon bucket. So a 5-gallon bucket is pretty tall, okay? It's not short. So you would think, well, that's way too much room for a tomato or for any plant in general. Well, that's where you're wrong. So the beautiful thing is that tomato plants are one of the few plants that actually grow roots out of every single part of the stem that is buried under the soil. So what that means is that if you take this plant right here, okay, and instead of being buried here, which is already buried deeper when I transplanted it, let's say we can get it up to here, okay? That is a good 12 inches. Well, what that means, we can bury it to the very top of here. We will now have roots that will soon start growing all the way from here down, okay? That doubles the root system, makes a very much stronger plant, and then when you have a plant with that much roots, guess what? You don't have to water it as much even more. So you add the cocoa fiber plus the huge root system and you really barely have to water this thing and it's still super healthy. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to move some of this here all the way to the side, okay? So we can get as much to the bottom as possible. And then I'm going to take my plant here and I'm going to put it down to the very bottom. Then after that, I'm going to slowly start to go get garden soil, put it in there, mix it together, put some more cocoa fiber, get more garden soil, and vice versa, back and forth. And I might get some more grass while I'm at it as well. It doesn't matter. You're not going to harm it with grass. And then after I'm done, I'm actually going to top it with grass on the top. Now what that's going to do is it's going to add some insulation, okay? So it's really hot. It gets almost 100 degrees now. So you want to add a little bit of insulation just as you would in the winter. So this summer insulation is actually going to keep it cooler, keep the roots cooler, and what that's going to do is it's going to help it retain water even longer. So you definitely want to mulch it. I like using grass clippings. They're free. Just mow your lawn. It's very easy. So let me get this done and we'll be back shortly. Alright, so now as you see, we got all the soil mixed on top here, okay? Now, like I said, I put a lot. I actually got about half cocoa fiber in there. And then I've got the rest of my garden soil, which has a lot of good compost in it as well. And then random leaves and, grass. Now, of course, I did not use the soil from the bed that had too much Fertilize, which previously hurt this tomato plant. I used it from the other 4 beds. So now what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to water it really heavily first. So the first time when you transplant something, you want to make sure you give it plenty of water so it doesn't have too much shock, okay? So then after that, I'm going to put the grass clippings on top to mulch it. Now, you do want to water it first, your first time, because you don't want to get these grass clippings too soggy, wet, and then matted down, because then it won't break down as well. So you want to give it nice, really good watering first, and you want to water again for multiple days. So with that amount of time, the grass clippings will actually break down properly. They'll get nice and dry, they'll look like hay, and it'll be perfect. Okay, so what I did here is I watered it until I started to see it come out of the bottom. Now, you only want to do this the first time you water it after you transplant it. because you want to make sure that water got throughout the entire bucket so that that cocoa fiber could actually pick up that water and hold it for you. So you want to make sure that all that cocoa fiber got plenty of water to soak up. It's very important. So then the excess water that it didn't want is just going to flow out the bottom. Now you don't need to do this every time you water it. You only want to do this the first time to make sure all of it gets nice and saturated. So then I took some of my grass clippings and just mulched the top of it beautifully. So what's going to happen, this plant is going to start to slowly show new growth. So I'm going to have suckers come out here, like this is a sucker right here, and these suckers are going to have beautiful new growth. It's not going to be curled like this, okay? It's going to come out beautiful. So here's another sucker right here, but again, this sucker is also curled. So what's going to happen is new ones like this one, who are still babies, hopefully won't be as curled, and all the new growth won't as well. So when I start to get new growth, I'll start to cut back some of this other growth here, and then what will happen is it'll have new beautiful green growth. It'll grow flowers and then tomatoes. Now obviously, being a tomato plant, I will want to stake this, or I can put a cage up. It's actually big enough I could fit a cage. So I'll do one of the two on the update video. You will see that. So talking about updates, I want to show you an update on the strawberries as well. So I planted strawberries in the garden and in containers, okay? So I want to show you. This is what they're looking like now. This is absolutely gorgeous, okay? This is what strawberries are supposed to look like. These are actually still a little bit, more shabby than you want, obviously. They're supposed to be nice and beautiful. But when you look at my previous video and how I had killed them, the fact that they almost had no green growth at all, this is amazing. You've got a lot of new bright green growth right here that's coming up. They're really coming back to life beautifully, and this is because of my soil here. And like I explained in the other video, the other soil I was using was not impressive. Alright, and then you've got some more over here that are doing well. I've got more over here, and I've got more in the garden as well. So this is just a quick update to show you. These strawberry plants are doing a lot better. I'm going to bring them back to life, and I can actually transplant them back into the garden after I fix that soil in that bed. Alright guys, so that is our video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think.